Hi guys. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to compare sets of data, specifically by looking at their measures of central tendency. So we have already talked about what mean, median, and mode are and how to find them. But now we're going to be looking at if I have different data sets, how do I compare those and what does that tell us? Okay, we've also talked about skew. So remember, if something is right skew, that is when the mean is greater than the median. And it will have outliers that are high on this tail end, okay? If the mean is equal to the median, and we're going to see some that aren't exactly equal, but they're very close. But if they're approximately the same, we can say it's a pretty normal distribution, and it's not going to have any outliers, okay? And then if it's left skewed, that's when the mean is less than the median and the data is skewed to the left. So we have that long tail to the left, and this means we're going to have low outliers. So our numbers are going to be below the lower fence. Okay. All right, so we're given some examples here. We're just given the mean and the median and asked to say, is this skewed right, left, or is it a normal distribution? Okay, so here the mean is quite a bit less than the median. If the mean is less, remember that is skewed left. Okay, this one, they're really close, and this honestly, it kind of depends on like the range of our data. If we have a pretty big range, I would say these are really close, so I would say this is approximately a normal distribution. But if I have a lot of points that are right around the same number, then I might say that this one is skewed right because the mean is greater than the median. So it kind of depends on how many points we have as to what we're kind of looking at in our range here. But so we have one of each, I'm going to say these are approximately equal. So we're going to say that this is normal distribution. Okay, here my mean is significantly greater than the median, so this one is going to be skewed right. Okay. All right, so now we have the same thing, but we're given a visual representation of the data. Here's a histogram, so we have that long tail to the left, so this is skewed left. Here, my tail is longer to the right of this box plot, so this one would be skewed right. And this one, if I kind of look at that shape, the peak is pretty much right in the middle, so this would be normally distributed as well. Okay. All right, this next part I'm going to use the calculator for, and I already did some entering ahead of time, you guys, so that you wouldn't have to watch me enter all these numbers. But remember, in your graphing calculator, you can enter these lists. So that's under Stat, and then Edit. So if I hit Enter, so this is my L1, L2, and then for the next problem I did this as L3, L4. So I entered all those numbers. So L1, there's 2720 on down, L2 here, and then L3 and 4 are down below. Okay, so I can enter multiple lists at the same time. If I need to clear a list, remember I scroll up, hit clear, enter, and that'll clear the whole list. Second mode or second quit gets me out of that. Okay, so what we're asked to do is calculate the mean, median, and standard deviation and then compare the data sets. Okay, so I'm going to do list one. I'm just going to write kind of the different pieces of information I know down below. Okay, so we're going to oh, sorry, I just realized I have the same thing printed twice. Okay, back to this. All right, so I'm going to find those different pieces. So remember to get there, we get Stat, and then I'm going to arrow over to Calc and hit Enter. And I just want to make sure this says L1 right here because I want to know for this list. So when I switch to L2, I'll change that to L2. So I'm going to scroll down to Calculate, hit Enter. Okay, so the different pieces they want are mean, median, standard deviation. So I'm going to scroll through the list and get what I need. So the mean X bar is right there, is 20.2. Standard deviation, we're going to use the sample standard deviation. So I've got 3.22. And then the median, right there, 19.5. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing now for list 2. So I'm going to go back to Stat and Calc, but right here, I'm going to change this to list 2. So if you guys look at these blue, I can see L2 is right there. So I'm going to hit second and then L2, and then same thing, calculate. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one now. So this is list 2. We're going to record those same pieces of data, 23.2, my standard deviation, 3.94, and my median, 22.5. Okay, so now we're asked to compare the data. So things that we want to talk about is we want to talk about the skew, the spread, and how they compare to each other. Okay, so we're going to compare their centers, their spread, and their skew. Okay, so the center, right, is we're looking at the mean. So we're talking about, okay, the mean for this fertilizer A is slightly less than fertilizer B. So we're going to say the center mean is slightly lower. Oh, sorry, the center, I'm going to say of A is slightly lower than the center of B. So where I'm getting that is 20.2 is less than 23.2, right? Those numbers here. Okay, so we talked about center. Okay, let's talk about the spread. So this is where I want to look at standard deviations. Remember, the smaller the standard deviation, the tighter together the data is. So we're going to say the data for fertilizer A is more clustered, or we could also say less spread out than the data for fertilizer B. And again, where I'm getting that is the standard deviation for A is less than the standard deviation for B. So 3.22 is less than 3.94. Okay, and the last thing we're talking about is the distribution. So this is where I want to look at how does the mean compare to the median. So 20.2 and 19.5 are extremely close. So remember, when the mean and median are equal or approximately equal, it's normally distributed. We have the same exact thing here. 22.5 and 23.2, very, very close. So we're going to say both sets are normally distributed. And that again is because the mean is so close to being equal to the median. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same exact thing for two different data sets. Again, I've already entered these lists under L3 and L4. So I'm going to now calculate the stats for that. So I'm going to go to stat. I'm going to do L3 this time. So calc, enter. I'm going to change this from L2 to L3. So L3 is above 3, so I'm going to hit second and then that. So change that to L3, calculate. Okay, and I'm going to get those same pieces of information. So we've got the mean is 25.9. Okay, the standard deviation is 8.23. And the median is 24.5. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing for list 4. So back to stat, calc, enter, change this to list 4. All right, mean 28.2, standard deviation 8.31. Oh. And our median is 30. Okay, so let's compare these again. So we're going to look at those same things. Okay, so the center of class B is slightly higher. sorry, that's an ugly B. Class B is slightly higher than class A. Okay, so we're getting B, right? The mean is 28.2 versus 25.9. Okay, when we talk about the spread, we're looking at the standard deviation. So these numbers are really, really close, those standard deviations. So we would say class A and B have a very similar spread. And again, that's because we're saying 8.23 is so close to being the same as 8.31. Okay, last thing is the skew. Okay, so the mean and median are pretty close here, and they are pretty close here. They're like 1.8 away on this one. This one, they're 1.4. So I would say on this one, the mean in both of them is slightly less, or excuse me, this one is slightly more, this one is slightly less. So I would say for A is skewed slightly, ever so slightly right, because the mean is greater than the median. And B is skewed slightly left because the mean is less than the median. Okay, so basically we're just using the tools we already know, but we're going to do it for two different data sets and compare. So again, the things we want to talk about are the center or the mean, comparing those, the skew, and the spread. Okay, skew we're going to look at comparing the mean versus median, and then the spread we're going to look at the standard deviation to determine that.